The Auditor-General provides assurance to Parliament on the accountability and performance of the Victorian public sector. The Auditor-General conducts financial audits and performance audits, and reports on the results of these audits to Parliament. On the 25th of June 2014, the Auditor-General tabled his performance audit, Recreational Maritime Safety. Victoria has a vast coastline and more than 3,000 square kilometres of inland rivers and lakes that provide us with valuable recreational opportunities that contribute greatly to our quality of life. In 2012, a new marine safety regulatory framework was introduced to improve the management of safety risks arising from these activities, and from the significant growth in recreational boating, commercial shipping, and newly exposed hazards in inland waterways. Over the 5 years to 2012-13, almost all incidents on state waters have involved recreational vessels only. Under this framework, responsibility for managing marine safety is shared between the state's Transport Safety Regulator, known as the Director, Transport Safety, and referred to in this presentation as the Safety Director, who is supported by Transport Safety Victoria, or TSV, designated waterway managers, and a range of other parties collectively known as duty holders, on whom the Marine Safety Act 2010 imposes an obligation to manage the safety risks arising from their activities. The Safety Director has a number of functions, including a role to monitor compliance with marine safety laws and coordinate the related enforcement activities of Victoria Police, Transport Safety Officers, and waterway managers. Waterway managers are responsible for managing waterway infrastructure, such as navigation aids and safety signage, in accordance with the standards set by the Safety Director, and for making and assuring compliance with safety rules, such as vessel exclusion zones and speed limits in waters under their control. There are currently 56 waterway managers responsible for 184 managed waterways. The voluntary nature of their role means that TSV needs to adopt a collaborative approach with them to maximise their involvement in managing safety. The objective of this audit was to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the state's marine safety regulatory framework in minimising safety risks. The audit examined the Safety Director, supported by TSV, in his role as the state's regulator and as a waterway manager, and the 5 other waterway managers shown here, which collectively are responsible for almost half of the state's managed waterways, including all high-risk waterways. We also looked at how Victoria Police's enforcement activities were informed by and aligned with TSV's framework, and at the Department of Transport Planning and Local Infrastructures, or DTPLI's, role in coordinating regulatory policy and legislation advice. The main conclusions from the audit were that the state's regulatory framework for minimising marine safety risks is not being effectively or efficiently implemented, and that the framework depends heavily on TSV's effective coordination with key agencies to maximise their compliance with their safety obligations. However, it is not evident that this is being achieved because TSV has no framework for evaluating the effectiveness of its regulatory approach and whether parties are fulfilling their responsibilities, the competence and ongoing suitability of appointed waterway managers, if the state's long-standing waterway rules remain fit for purpose and support the efficient management of current safety risks, and whether TSV, waterway managers, and Victoria Police are continuously improving their management of marine safety. Consequently, TSV cannot adequately assure Parliament, the Minister for Ports, or the community that its current approach to regulating marine safety is working. DTPLI, in consultation with the Safety Director and central agencies, needs to urgently review the adequacy of current funding arrangements for the framework. Moving on to our key findings, I will begin with our findings on system-wide monitoring arrangements. In essence, this audit has found that they are inadequate. TSV's existing monitoring arrangements do not enable the Safety Director to assess whether all his functions are being effectively and efficiently carried out. TSV mainly reports on incidents investigated and vessels inspected. It has no documented arrangements for monitoring and assessing the effectiveness of the wider marine safety system. This means that TSV lacks the information needed to effectively target and prioritise its activities. Key shortcomings in performance monitoring, risk management, and enforcement highlight a pressing need for TSV to establish such arrangements. Both TSV and the waterway managers have long-standing concerns about the lack of funding which have yet to be resolved. This has been consistently raised by them as an issue impeding their ability to effectively regulate. This situation, coupled with the deficiencies in statewide monitoring, means there is a need for DTPLI to lead a review of current resourcing arrangements. Turning now to risk management, we found it is essentially inadequate across most of the system. There is little evidence to demonstrate that TSV and waterway managers are effectively managing recreational maritime safety risks. While TSV has a conceptually sound approach for assessing risks across all waters, its implementation is compromised by critical information gaps and over-reliance on the deficient risk management practices of most waterway managers and inadequate quality assurance. A key shortcoming is that TSV does not routinely assess the safety risks on unmanaged waterways. None of the examined waterway managers could demonstrate that all of their waterway users and safety controls complied with the Act and are effective in minimising local safety risks. Additionally, while existing waterway rules are a critical component of the state's risk control framework, most were established decades ago and are not periodically reviewed to assure their ongoing relevance and appropriateness. These shortcomings are significant as they mean that TSV nor most waterway managers can be fully confident about the effectiveness and efficiency of current safety controls. TSV, and encouragingly, some waterway managers and Victoria Police, have been active in promoting maritime safety and associated risks. However, TSV has yet to evaluate the impact of these initiatives on improving compliance with marine safety laws. TSV acknowledges the importance of such evaluations for targeting its future activities, but advises that its capacity to undertake them is currently limited by available funding. We also found that despite the Safety Director having a role under the Act to support and coordinate enforcement, TSV has no arrangements with all waterway managers and Victoria Police to share risk information and coordinate their related enforcement activities. Additionally, although waterway managers can elect to enforce marine safety laws, we also found that most have not done so because of their limited resources and because they are not funded to do so. TSV has no arrangements to systematically assess and mitigate the regulatory risks arising from this situation. In particular, its current audits of waterway managers focus mainly on technical compliance matters and don't assess the effectiveness of their risk management practices. TSV also does not systematically follow up on its audits to assure that safety issues have been addressed. We also found that TSV's support to waterway managers is limited. Specifically, TSV can't be certain that the training and guidance it provides to them meets their needs, because it hasn't determined the key capabilities they require or assessed them against those capabilities. It is important to note that the Minister for Ports is responsible for appointing waterway managers and that the Act doesn't prescribe explicit capability criteria. However, this does not preclude TSV, in consultation with DTPLI, from developing a capability framework to better inform its support to waterway managers and any related advice to the Minister. The current lack of such framework means that TSV has limited insight into waterway managers' capability gaps, or whether they should be continuing in their role. Therefore, the training and guidance TSV provides to waterway managers has been largely reactive and limited, and needs to be complemented with a more targeted approach based on a holistic assessment of capability gaps. The audit has made 14 recommendations directed at addressing these issues. Most relate to the Safety Director and focus on the need to regularly assess and report on the performance of Victoria's marine safety system and to use this information for targeting his regulatory activities. We have also recommended that DTPLI reviews the adequacy of current resourcing arrangements for supporting effective implementation of the marine safety regulatory framework. Additionally, we also recommend that waterway managers establish effective arrangements to systematically identify, assess, and monitor safety risks. And finally, we recommended that the Safety Director, in consultation with DTPLI, implemented a waterway manager capability framework to better inform support to waterway managers and any related advice to the Minister for Ports. All our reports are available on our website. If you have any questions about this or other reports, or if you have anything else you would like to discuss with us, including ideas for future audit topics, please call us on 03 8601 7000 or contact us via our website.